I'm Meaghan Mitts. I work with Mockingbird Ministries. We've been coming to the Windrider Forum for a few years now, and it's always so exciting to be here and to see so many kind of enterprising young college students who are looking forward to a future in film. So thank you for having us here. If you don't immediately recognize Julian's name, you may know his YouTube channel, Righteous Robot. I don't know, are there folks in the room who know Righteous Robot? Yeah.
Thanks.
About 2 million people follow Julian's work on YouTube. And as you could see, Gruff is a short film, a handmade paper short film, built, designed, puppeteered, and edited by Julian across almost 3 years. So as you can imagine, that was painstaking, laborious work that requires patience that I could never muster. It's a love story about the people that you know love you, but may not express it in the ways that you immediately receive, which perhaps you can also relate to. So I just wanted to start by asking a question that perhaps you've been asked 100 times, and that is, how did you get into paper puppeteering? How did you teach yourself this skill, and how have you carved out your unique audience?
Sure, I absolutely stumbled into this accidentally. I have a fine art background. I've sketched and doodled and drawn since I can remember. Then I got into theater, became a theater kid. Then I got into film and started making live action film. And I felt like I was really hitting a stride and making like a short film a month, maybe like a minute or two in length, right before the pandemic hit. And once that hit, I just felt like my momentum dropped, and I wanted to keep that creativity going. I wanted to keep practicing and improving my craft. But you know, my wife and I took restrictions very seriously, and we didn't want to film with anyone in our area. So I thought, well, what if I finally combine my fine art background and that interest into filmmaking? I appreciate you calling me patient, but I'm actually a pretty impatient filmmaker. So I thought, oh, well, I'm an artist. I can draw 12 frames a second, or I can do stop motion, which is, you know, adjusting the figurines once every 12 seconds, or 12 times every second, or sometimes 24 times a second. And no, I did not have patience for that.
Okay.
No, but as a kid, I loved playing with toys. I didn't get video games until later in life, and I'm so grateful for that because my imagination just grew so much with toys. And I'm like, man, what if making a practical film was as exciting as playing with toys? How do I remove my hands in the computer? Because that's all I want to do. And so after a few tests, and a lot of YouTube tutorials, teaching myself just some basic VFX and how to remove puppet wires and rods, I stumbled into this approach, into this style, which I'm still struggling to find a good name. Everyone asks, like, wait, is it stop motion? And I say, no, it's puppetry, but it's not like a Henson puppet. So I'm still searching for it. But again, I appreciate you calling me patient, but this style was definitely born out of an impatience and a respect for animators who can adjust things 12 times a second.
But is it safe to say that you've kind of carved out your own little niche? Is this something that you had seen anybody else do? And how did you gather the courage to step into a field that was otherwise kind of uncharted?
The thing is that like the industry was so quiet around COVID times that I felt like I had the freedom to experiment. It wasn't crowded with a lot of people doing such incredible work that I became intimidated by,
Right.
like, well, I can't do that. It was a pretty quiet time, and a lot of filmmakers were displaced and not displaced, but unable to do their jobs because there were no sets to report to. So I felt a little more comfortable taking a risk because not many things were being made. And as far as it being a niche, I never thought about it that way. I just wanted to do things up to a standard that I thought looked good, and I didn't really think about what this genre would be called or how it would be received. Now I'm going to ride the niche. I'm not going back to live action unless I have to. So I'm constantly trying to find new ways to improve this style and to fine-tune it. So this is the first of many.
That's great to hear. Let's talk a little bit about the storyline. This is a story of an overachieving kind of type A ambitious secret agent who was raised in a household that looked very differently from the world in which she eventually inhabited. And for that reason, she felt an affection and a respect for her dad, but their closeness became compromised because their worlds were so different. Can anybody in the room relate to that? Okay, I can. And I just wondered how you settled on that character and if it's somewhat biographical.
Well, I hate to disappoint everyone in the room. I am not, in fact, a super spy. I know. The letdown of behind-the-scenes insight. No, I chose the super spy route just to give the film some more energy and to give it some more color and, frankly, entertainment value. The core of the story was very personal to me and to my relationship with my dad, and early iterations of the script were not dark, but just somber and didn't leave you feeling, I don't know, affirmed or excited. And I think that art can be such an incredible vessel for good ideas, but if that vessel is exhausting and is hard to consume, sometimes you lose the message. Even if it's an appropriate message, if it's a life-affirming message, you know, if you have a bad edit, like, the message is not going to come across. So I find entertainment value very important, regardless of the message. So, you know, inventing the super spy aspect to it. That was inspired, though. My dad worked in immigrations and customs enforcement, not on the border. He was actually in charge of deporting terrorists after 9/11 back to their countries. He was Mexican-American himself, and he's like, yeah, I'm only going to be in charge of shipping out bad guys. So growing up, I saw him as the super spy. I have a tattoo of the plane that he did a lot of missions on as well. So growing up, him coming, he's like, I just got back from Lebanon. I just got back from, you know, a huge meeting at The Hague in Amsterdam. And
Wow.
I saw him as the James Bond as this character. So I thought that kind of bleeding that into the other character would be a fun way to bring that entertainment value while also still staying true to his spirit.
Yeah, so you were saying a lot about their relational dynamic and the differences and the kind of beauty that could be born out of their difference, especially as the dad became ill. But you also, I think, were commenting on the role of silence and quiet and empathy and just sort of the listening that is required when someone is communicating with you in a way that you don't immediately receive. Can you say a little bit more about the experience of silence in your life and why you think it's so important?
Certainly. I think a lot of us give love in a certain way, but we also like to receive love in a certain way, and sometimes those can be different. And when we don't receive love in the way that we're used to, often especially in our current society, we use that as a red flag, and we kind of cancel that person in our life, set that boundary, and they say, well, if they're not going to love me on the terms that I want to receive love, then this is not a relationship worth fostering. And in some situations, that's a very important move to do. It is important to set boundaries, especially if they are, you know, sucking your happiness and your joy. But a lot of times, love is not binary. Just because you don't use words doesn't mean that love and sacrifice and empathy do not exist. I happen to enjoy words of affirmation, and when my dad was alive, at the time I was pursuing acting in LA and then transitioned into filmmaking. But I would come home and I'd say, oh, I booked this thing, and I look at this short film that I was in, or I booked this TV show, and he was always supportive, but it was never in the way that I had pictured him receiving that information. It was a lot of, all right, let's watch the show, let's watch the game. And while he was alive, I misconstrued that as a lack of empathy and a lack of interest. Since he's passed away, I've processed that now as that was the love, sitting next to each other and watching the game, watching the news, which I hated to watch, and he loved the news. But then when I left town, he would go and brag to all his friends about the student short film that I booked.
How cool his son was, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't get those words, but it was there.
Right. Okay, this is my last question, and then I want to turn it over to the audience. I'm sure that this process, which I tried to learn a little bit about ahead of this conversation, entails a lot of trial and error, maybe with more emphasis on the error.
Oh, 100%.
How do you persevere? And how do you kind of, as a filmmaker, tweak your process and your intent when you face failure?
I kind of built that process into this short film. There's like 23 or 24 unique locations in this. It's a bit off a lot more than I could chew. But my plan for that was, well, if I really struggled with one location, one scene, I've always got the next one to improve it, rather than the whole thing taking place in one location and be like, well, I'm locked in. If I don't know how to do this, I really am gonna fail. So there were some scenes that were much harder than others, some locations. So I shot it all chronologically so that I was my best animator by the end, so I could really land that last scene. So the puppeteering literally evolved from like year 1 to year 3 by the end. And I just treated each scene as like, okay, do better than the last one, light it better, color it better, puppeteer it better. So they were little steps rather than, oh my gosh, this huge short film. I feel like I made 24 short films.
I think this would be a great time to turn it over to the audience. I thought there'd be a lot of questions. Okay, let's start with this fellow in green here at the front.
So as a young filmmaker and as an audience full of young filmmakers, I want to ask what you would say to yourself 5 years ago or at the start of your filmmaking career.
Sure, I would say, instead of trying to follow the trends of what is happening in the industry right now, follow your truth. And by that, I mean, dig into your life for the experiences that you've had, for the hobbies that you have that even are unrelated to film, whether that's, collecting Hot Wheels or cooking Italian dinners or yoga or dance or singing. Combine all your passions, combine all your life experience, because that is the secret sauce and DNA that makes you completely you and eliminates the competition. You only have competition when you try to be like other people. There is no competition when you are fully you.
You should also do motivational speaking.
Also YouTube videos, it's all there. Just watch tutorials.
How about at the back in the black shirt, right? Yes.
What do you have to say about people that wants to get into stop motion? Can you talk about kind of the difficulties or the success that you had during it?
I mean, success is just getting it done to me, just finishing. So there were a handful of tests that I did to make sure this style worked, but none of those tests were successful. At a certain point, I said, the film is the test. So this was my experiment. So I'd say don't wait until you have any skill perfected, because you never will. At a certain point, you just have to go. That being said, manage your expectations. If it's your first time doing it, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't do 24 locations. And action and drama and comedy and Western and blending genres, or do. There's no hard and fast rule, but for your project to be done, a complete project will teach you more than a delayed project. And so even if it is imperfect, if it's done, you're gonna have that much more knowledge and technical ability that you can take into your next project or that you can show to clients. You can't show what you're messing around with at home to clients. Even if it's an imperfect film, if you can send a finished film to someone, that's so much more actionable in this industry.
How about the person in the purple right in the middle of the room?
So first off, I just want to say I followed this film from the beginning when you were on social media and doing it. And my question kind of relates to that. How did being on social media and showing behind the scenes footage of how you're creating this film affect you creating the film? Did you learn anything through the process? Did you get any feedback or comments, or
Totally.
How did that work?
I think that social media is an invaluable tool to filmmakers because it gives you some sort of accountability to an invisible public that knows that you're doing this. So in the back of your head, you're thinking, okay, well, I've shared about this, I really should complete it. And to anyone who has a tendency to abandon projects because nobody knows about it, I really recommend just sharing. That's the practical reason, but the creative reason is that it really, you do get feedback sometimes, and that can be so constructive as you're going through the process. I was careful not to release too many like completed scenes, but I released so many videos of me building the puppets, building the set, and what that did was, in the long run, it ended up building a huge audience that was ready to watch it the day I dropped. But what was most valuable is that it created a community around the film, a community of artists, animators, industry people, non-industry people. So if you're making a film, I really recommend just sharing the process of it, the highs and the lows, because we can all relate to people struggling to make their dream come true. And when we're invested in it and when we're invested in the people, I wouldn't say the final product doesn't matter, but we're rooting for that filmmaker. We're rooting for that artist a little more. Even here at Sundance, if there's a movie that you watch that's like, meh, I find that when you meet the filmmakers and you hear about their struggles of shooting, I really love the movie more because the human behind it, I got to know them. And so many people just wait to drop the finished product and then they say, hey, do you like who are you? What is this? What's this movie? What are these laurels? I wasn't there. And what's this poster? I know nothing about it, so no community was established beforehand. So I really recommend using social media as a tool to build community leading into your release.
Your note about audience, I think, is really important, especially for newbies that don't have audiences that are kind of built in. Can you say a bit more about the reciprocity between the maker and the audience and how your choices or your themes or even your strategy for the next film is affected directly by the input you get on YouTube or Instagram
Certainly.
or wherever?
I mean, we're all visual artists, we're all storytellers. Everyone on planet Earth processes their existence through story, and often through image. So if you alienate your audience, what are you doing this for? This is an audience medium, so to receive feedback and to build, not to cater 100% to an audience, but to have that reciprocity, like you said, is so important, and to know, okay, I'm getting a little lost in my own idea here. My wife is always the first person I tell things to, and if it doesn't even get past that phase, then I know I gotta go back to the drawing board. Because then if she likes it, then I'll take it to a few other friends, and then I'll take it to industry people, and then I'll start sharing stuff about it on social media. So I think it's really important to know your audience, and that is what social media is for. Again, you don't want to drop a poster that nobody knows what this is about. We have no emotional investment. So bring them along in the journey. You might learn a lot from that.
Final question. What's next for you? Is there another short film we can look forward to seeing soon?
There is. I'm hoping to release it this year. So I've really quickened my process. Everything that I just said about audience, let's throw that out because I'm going so much darker with this next short. Like I've explained this film as like, I really want it to feel like a hug, and this other one is, it's based in truth, it's based in reality of the human condition, but it's not gonna feel like a hug. So I feel so contradictory there, but it's a medieval story, it's a duel, it's written in Old English, so totally alienating the audience.
Maybe you can integrate Mako's word from Beowulf. I'm forgetting what it was, but you should steal that.
I know. I have such an affinity for fantasy and history that I just, it was one of the challenges of making a film like this. I don't like modern things. I love time periods. I love other worlds, sci-fi, fantasy, and all that. So I just need to go back to what kind of made me a filmmaker and make some armor and cool weapons and stuff.
That sounds great. And as Craig has said to us as an audience, hugs are wonderful, but sometimes you need slaps to kind of be awakened to the reality of life. So thank you so much for the work that you've done. We're very grateful.